sun was just beginning to rise over the city skyline, casting a golden hue on the glass doors of the towering auditorium, where hundreds had gathered to audition for National Star Voice, the most prestigious singing competition in the country. Outside, the atmosphere buzzed with excitement and nervous energy. Young hopefuls paced with their headphones on, vocalizing scales, flaunting their outfits, and live streaming their preparation for their fans. Then came a woman who didn't fit the scene at all. She stepped out of an auto rickshaw quietly. No driver door opened for her, no camera lights followed her. She was wearing a faded blue kurta, her dupatta neatly pinned, her chapals slightly worn from years of use. A cloth bag was slung over her shoulder, and in her hand was a small tiffin box and a wrinkled audition form with the corners carefully folded to avoid damage. Her hair was tied in a simple braid, and her eyes, though calm, carried a storm of stories untold. As she walked toward the audition line, heads turned, not in admiration, but amusement. A group of young, stylish contestants broke into giggles. One of them nudged another and whispered loud enough to be heard, "Is she here to clean the floors or sing?" Another added mockingly, "Maybe she got lost on her way to the market." Maya didn't flinch. Her pace didn't change, but the slight tightening of her fingers around the audition form gave her away. She looked ahead, focusing only on the entrance door. Not on the stairs, not on the smirks, not even on the camera crew that casually skipped over her to focus on a flamboyant performer in a glittering silver jacket. Inside the hall, the registration desk assistant paused for a moment when Maya handed her the form. Her eyes scanned her from top to bottom with a doubtful look, before mechanically giving her a contestant badge. 3x17. No smile, no welcome. Just a cold nod. As Maya moved to the waiting area, she passed a large LED screen showing highlight reels of last year's glamorous top finalists. Her reflection appeared faintly on the glass, a reminder that she didn't belong in this world of gloss and glamour. And yet here she was, not to impress, not to win, but because she had something inside her that needed to be heard. She found a quiet corner and sat down. While others warmed up their voices loudly, Maya opened her tiffin box and ate 2 dry parathas wrapped in foil. She didn't look nervous, just tired. Tired, but unwavering. Little did anyone in that hall know, this woman, ignored, mocked, invisible, was about to become unforgettable. The loudspeaker crackled. "Contestant 317, please report to the stage." Maya stood up slowly, wiping her hands on the edge of her dupatta. She took a deep breath, folded the foil from her paratha neatly, and placed it back into her bag. With her contestant badge pinned to her chest, she walked through the long corridor that led to the audition stage. On both sides of the corridor, camera crews and organizers brushed past her, barely noticing her presence. The music echoing from the stage grew louder with every step until she stood behind the curtain, moments away from stepping into the spotlight. A stagehand looked her over quickly and muttered, "You ready?" Maya simply nodded. The curtain parted. A blinding white spotlight snapped on, illuminating the center of the stage. Maya stepped forward slowly. Her shadow loomed tall on the wall behind her, but she looked small against the grand, glittering backdrop of the auditorium. The judges sat like emperors on a throne, 3 celebrities whose faces were familiar in every household. Cameras captured their reactions in real time for the live stream. Judge 1, a sharp-tongued pop diva, leaned into her mic. "Name?" Maya's voice was soft, almost a whisper. "Maya Verma." Judge 2, the charming but cynical music producer, raised an eyebrow. "You've come alone." Maya nodded. "All right then, Maya." Judge 3, a former rock star with a rough exterior, glanced at his clipboard, visibly uninterested. "What are you singing for us today?" I've written a song," Maya said nervously. "For my son." There was a pause. Judge 1 leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "An original song? You sure you don't want to pick something safe?" This isn't your local school function." From the audience gallery, a few contestants stifled laughter. One even whispered, "She's going to sing some nursery rhyme." But Maya stood still, silent, holding the microphone in both hands as if it were the only thing tethering her to the earth. The stage techs nodded. The mic was live. The room quieted, slightly amused, mostly expectant. One of the judges hovered his finger above the red buzzer, ready to cut her short if she failed to impress within seconds. And then she inhaled. The room stood still. Maya's eyes closed. And then it happened. A single note escaped her lips, soft, crystal clear, and impossibly deep. It carried something unexplainable. The kind of note that doesn't just vibrate through a mic. It seeps through walls, slips through hardened hearts, and echoes in places words can never reach. Everyone froze. The judge's hand, once hovering over the buzzer, dropped slowly to the table. Maya began to sing, not with power, but with soul. But her voice wove through the air like smoke from a sacred fire, low, rising, curling, enveloping everything. It was not technical perfection. It was emotional truth. Raw, bleeding, honest. The kind of voice that made people feel things they hadn't in years. The lyrics told the story of a mother who watched her child fade away, of nights spent humming lullabies into hospital pillows, of begging fate for just one more day. And yet it wasn't just grief. It was strength, wrapped in melody. The camera operator, who had been texting just moments earlier, now stared into his lens, forgetting to even move it. The young contestants backstage stood silently by the monitor, mouths slightly open, tears welling in more than one pair of eyes. When Maya hit the high note, one held so long and pure it felt supernatural, the audience held its breath. The lights above flickered gently, almost reverently. No one moved. And when the final note dropped into silence like a stone into a still lake, the world felt like it had forgotten to turn for just a second. Then came the sound that shattered. The silence, thunderous applause. The crowd rose to its feet one after another until the entire auditorium was on its feet, clapping, cheering, crying. Even the judges, those stone-faced icons, looked stunned. Judge 1 wiped the corner of her eye and whispered into her mic, "That wasn't a performance. That was a resurrection." Judge 2 leaned forward, studying Maya's face as if seeing it for the first time. "You didn't just sing a song. You turned your pain into poetry." And somewhere in the back row, the same contestants who laughed when she entered now stared in stunned silence, no longer laughing, no longer mocking. Maya stood in the center of it all, tears in her eyes, hands trembling, but not from fear, from relief. For the first time in a very long time, she was heard. The judges were still seated, but no longer in control of the room. The applause continued to echo across the hall, not because the audience had to, but because they couldn't help it. Maya stepped back from the mic, unsure of what to do. It was her first time on a real stage. She had imagined the moment in dreams, but never like this. Not this loud, not this overwhelming, not this real. Judge 3, who hadn't spoken yet, finally leaned forward. His gruff tone softened as he said, "Tell us, Maya, who taught you to sing like that?" She hesitated. Her voice broke. "No one. I never had time for lessons. I used to sing lullabies to my son when he was sick. It was the only thing that made him sleep." The auditorium fell silent again, not because she was performing, now but because truth always demands silence. Judge 1 placed her hand gently on her heart and asked softly, "Is he still with you?" Maya smiled through tears. "No, he passed away 2 years ago, but I promised him, one day, I'd sing on a real stage. Just once. For him." A collective breath seemed to leave the room. Judge 2 swallowed hard, visibly emotional, and And what do you do now, Maya? I clean houses, she replied plainly, morning to evening, but I sing while I work. That was when something unexpected happened. From the shadows of the backstage, one of the stylists rushed forward. She was holding a worn-out audio CD in her hand. I think I know her, the stylist said, her voice trembling. A year ago, I found this disc outside an apartment. It had a woman's voice on it singing to a child. I kept it because the voice haunted me. It stayed with me. I played it whenever I felt lost. That was you. The judges looked at each other, stunned. That moment became more than an audition. It became a revelation. Maya hadn't just sung. She had left a mark on people's souls without even knowing it. The show's host stepped onto the stage, mic in hand, voice shaky but charged with emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, we witness many talents on this stage every season. But sometimes, once in a generation, someone walks in, not to chase fame, not for glory, but to remind us why music exists. He turned to Maya. You didn't just perform, you awakened. So, with that, he raised her hand in the air. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, and the stage's giant backdrop screen lit up with a live vote count. The producers had opened early voting for the audience inside, and online viewers watching the live broadcast. Thousands of votes poured in. Maya Verma, 97% approval rating, the highest in the show's history. The audience roared again, louder than before. Flowers were handed to her. A golden ticket for the next round was presented. But Maya's hands trembled, not at the sight of the ticket, but when she looked up and whispered, "We did it, Beta. I kept my promise." Cameras zoomed in on her teary eyes. Screenshots of that moment flooded social media within minutes. The woman who walked in quietly with dust on her sandals was now the most trending name on the internet. Backstage, the contestants who had mocked her stood motionless. One of them stepped forward, guilt heavy in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said simply. "You showed us what real power is." Maya looked at him with quiet grace. Kindness echoes louder than cruelty. Always. And as she walked off stage, applause still following her like a tide, the judges exchanged glances and nodded. They had just witnessed history. This wasn't just a performance. This was the rise of a legend.